Okay, so this is the quick comic review. It's one because there's only like 10 books here. Well, it's 12 total, but two of them are ones that I own. One's a movie, one's a book. But I still read it, and I still want to review them both. But 10 of these books will be returned to the library today because I'm going today. But it goes to ones that I was able to finish. But you won't see them, so when returning them, you won't see them. So I like to show off the book physically. That's why that one time when the video crashed completely, because of this thing, I had to make a community post. Even that was kind of hard to do because I actually had to go to my emails to check which books I got in that previous week. Cause I get a lot of books. I couldn't remember each and every one. I did pretty good actually. I gotta say because it was pretty good because like a lot of them was the next volume in this series. So I had a volume 8 of this series. So I know it's just volume 7 that I got to review. And then a lot of them I remember because they were just memorable books and it wasn't that long ago. But without further ado, let's get into it. First one up is the movie and the comic of A History of Violence. And both of these I liked a lot better the second time I did the first time. And I loved this book the first time. The movie I feel like I thought was good but not great, but now I think it's great. I completely understand why people say this is a criminally underrated movie and it's one of like the best comic adaptations ever. The best part about this comic and the movie is that this is a more condensed version of the comic, but it doesn't sacrifice anything that you would really want in the comic. But the comic, if you want more of that story, you want the characters to be more fleshed out because it's this movie is very good. Its characters, there is a lot of stuff that's not explained, but it's explained here. So it's kind of like an extended. It's kind of like reading. It's kind of like this is the director's guide, honestly, but in graphic novel form, and it came out before the movie did. So I gotta give props. Great credit is due. That's one of those things that like you can. Honestly, I would say to check out both, because you can't go wrong either way. And I'd almost say to watch the movie first. Honestly, you could read the comic after, or I said the same thing. Honestly, you could read the comic before, but it doesn't really matter. Next up is a comic that I got as a gift from a subscriber, and one on Instagram. More on Instagram. I follow Instagram followers. I don't think he's subscribed to the channel, but Unruly Simeon had given me Tom Strong and a bunch of other DC comics, like another Alan Moore 2-volume series. It was top 10, and he gave me two Green Lantern books that I already owned, but I'll just be replacing my copy with his copy. And I think that's about it, right? And he gave me two floppies. But this one, I read before a long time ago, and I will like. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I didn't really like it the first time I read it, but when I unboxed the book, I was like, I actually am excited to read this again, give it a second chance, and I'm glad I did because I did like this book, but it's good, not great. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I have the first 2 volumes, so I can at least say I've read some of Tom Strong. But after I read volume 2, I will not be picking up any more volumes of this series. I will be stopping after that. But I'm still glad I had the first 2 volumes. I'm so glad I was able to read the series that a lot of people say is good, and I actually was able to give more of a chance to it than I did last time. So, but I still do recommend this book, regardless. There's a lot of other. It seems to be like a critically acclaimed series, apparently. Then we have Global Frequency by Warren Ellis, and I finally like this book now. For the longest time, I thought this was just okay, and I didn't really understand why people said this was one of the best Warren Ellis comics out there. I thought it was just okay, but I gave it like 50 different chances, and it is one of those books that I always want to. I'm always eager to read it again, even though I remember that I didn't like it that much. I still am like each time I pick it up, I'm kind of eager. I'm like, hey, let's check it out. Let's give this another chance. Every 6 months or so, I will do that, and I probably will do it again 6 months later, and maybe like even more. So to recommend, it's a nice little espionage comic. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's an anthology, so each issue you follow a different character, and I kind of feel like that's good on paper, but here it's executable enough because like, there's characters you do like more than others. But I wish there was more of a like conclusion where it was all of them together kind of thing. But regardless, I still like this comic. It's one of the Vertigo books that like because it was Wildstorm. It's violent, yeah. Because if they were to adapt it into a movie, it would be R, but it would just be for violence. Like there's not a whole lot of language. The worst instead, I think, was one S word. You're allowed to have that in a PG-13. So honestly, they just didn't have it. They just even the violence is kind of infrequent. It basically rated R for some violence. It could be a very soft R. But a lot of Vertigo books, like History of Violence, would have been R, like hands down. But Preacher would have been like almost like NC-17, honestly. Like Vertigo is like always like R-rated stuff. Never goes below, because that's the whole point of Vertigo, was to be harder edge. That was kind of like the trendsetter of adult comics, which I do appreciate. Because I'm one of those people that can kind of, I wouldn't say like, because I read books like Spider-Man. It's obviously not, it's like almost all ages kind of thing. But then I'll read something like Preacher, which is not all ages, and mature readers. But like I kind of gravitate more towards the mature than the immature kind of thing. But even Spider-Man, like sometimes they'll get like I was gonna see the Spider-Man book pretty soon here. It was able to tackle more like hard-hitting stuff, like more mature themes. Amazon's Attack. One of those books I kind of regret reading again. It's not fun bad. It's kind of annoying bad, but not like, it was just kind of bland, but not bland. Like, it's kind of one of those things that I can't say it was anything, because I still sort of enjoyed it. I wasn't completely bored out of my mind when I had to pick up, so I put these books in a pile, and when I came across this book to read it again, I wasn't like dreading it or anything like that. But reading 2 issues of this per day, so I could finish it before it was too late, kind of thing, before I ran out of time, it kind of was nice to, it kind of was one of those things where I was like, oh, I don't want to read this twice again, but I still enjoyed it, and no, I can't say I enjoyed it. It was like, it's hard to explain. It's a very like I don't recommend it, but if you want to know what the fuss is all about, it's good for that, but don't expect it to be too terrible, but then you probably would be. Like, it's kind of like one of those things that, like, is kind of difficult. But if you want to see, because this is one of the most infamous comics of all time, if you want to finally pick it up and read it, I would say it's worth it, but don't pay too much for it. It is actually out of print, and I was lucky enough in the library to have it, or Angel Loans, rather. Star Wars Screaming Citadel is begging for a movie adaptation. Why couldn't the sequel trilogy have just been adapting these comics, the Jason Aaron and Kieran Gillen run of Star Wars and Darth Vader, respectively, and they call it like the in-between trilogy? That's all you guys had to do. It's right there. One of the best Star Wars comics I've read a whole lot of Star Wars comics, but just one of the best books I've read in one of the best licensed comics ever is right here, and all you had to do is adapt that. Not like you had to give them any royalties, because you don't do that anyways. The people that actually create the characters. They're talking about Marvel and Disney. The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 is a Wells run. I liked this a lot more than I thought I would, but it's still, I can still understand why people don't like this. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you want Mary Jane and Peter Parker to be married? Yeah, screw you guys. But when you ignore that and you're like, okay, fine, maybe eventually we'll get them back together, or maybe eventually, like, we'll, it's still a good mystery. It's still a very good mystery. You still want to like see what happened, and it's a very good book. In that regard, but in the regard of being a Spider-Man book, it's not the best. But I still enjoyed it, and I still will be reading Volume 2 and then 3, but only what my local library has. And will not be giving Zeb Wells any of my money, because I don't think he likes Mary Jane and Peter Parker, and that's not a good thing, because you're supposed to be fighting Spider-Man. Then Spider-Man Tombstone was a nice surprise. This is one of those books that, it honestly, the only thing that's dated about this comic is the way the story is written. Like, the way, like, there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of narration. Other than that, this is a modern-ass book, and it holds up significantly well. This is, if you want to know more about Tombstone, pick this book up. It is absolutely incredible. I really, really enjoyed this one. It might just be a pick of the week. A lot of these are rereads, so I don't do rereads as picks of the week, so there you go. Yeah, it is. Honestly, looking at all these books, that's the pick of the week. It's Spider-Man Tombstone. Messiah Complex is an insanely good X-Men comic, and it's one of those books you don't really, you can pick this one up. not as necessarily your first X-Men book, but like you don't have to read what anything that comes out before from this to understand what's going on here. And it's honestly a really damn good story. It's like with Star Wars Screaming Citadel begging for a film adaptation. It's one of those X-Men comics that you can, like, there's a reason for why X-Men has stood the test of time and why everyone likes X-Men, and they feel like X-Men tells the best stories and the most, like, hard-hitting stories, most mature stories, and this is a good example of that. House of Penance, I liked a lot better the second time. I actually really enjoyed this one this time. And it was one of those times when I was like, I can kind of understand why I didn't like it the first time, but how? Still kind of how? Like before I gave like a 4 out of 10, I would give this like a 8 out of 10 now. And yes, I will be doing the out of 10 review, because this video is already short enough. God is Dead, Volume 8. While I did like this series as a whole, I was kind of glad this is the last book in the series. I don't think I'll be rushing out to read the series again. Still highly recommend the series, but I still was glad that it was only 8 volumes. It was basically like what people say about The Simpsons, like season 10 and 11, where it was starting to get bad, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. But they just had canceled it then. People would have been glad it's over, but they still would have wanted more, kind of thing. Like, oh, well, what if you know, like people, there's so many like forums, like, oh, if only they came back, you know, that kind of thing. That's how I feel about God's Day. Like, it got just to that mark where I was like, yeah, I'm glad it's over. And I kind of, but not necessarily I want more, but I was kind of glad ending where it did, because it had a kind of a good conclusion, but I did kind of, a bit see it overstayed its welcome just slightly. Then finally, The Man Who Fell to Earth. I still don't like this book. I still think it's kind of all over the place. Some of it I liked a lot better than the first time around. Like when we started out, the first, like, I would say the first act I really enjoyed. There was a lot in that. I was like, oh, I want to know more about this. But I think introduced like a lot more and too much. It's a bit too ambitious for its own sake. For its own good. But hopefully the TV show, which I will be getting that today, hopefully that'll be a lot better. Alright, so I'm going to go over these again and just give the out of 10 reviews. I will include the ones that I own myself, because it's still something I read. Movie and comic of A History of Violence, I give 9s out of 10, like, respectively. Tom Strong, I give a 6 out of 10. Global Frequency, 7 out of 10. Amazon's Attack, 2 out of 10. Screaming Citadel, 8.5 out of 10. 0.5 means that it's not necessarily a 9, but it's not necessarily an 8. It's like right in the middle. And I know, like, people like make the joke, oh, I give it 8.6, 7, 8, 4, 5, and then that's why I give actual reviews. Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 1, Zeb Wells, I give a 6.5 out of 10. Spider-Man Tombstone, I give it 9 out of 10. X-Men Messiah Complex, 9.5 out of 10. House of Penance, 8.5 out of 10. God is Dead, Volume 8, 7 out of 10. Man Who Fell to Earth, 3 out of 10. And that, as I say, is that. How long are we been going for? Okay, I knew it would be 13 minutes. It's always that. I have a pretty busy day today. I'm like, doing this right now is actually kind of risky, so to speak, because I have to go to the movies in less than an hour. But when I get back, if I have enough time, I will try and do the complete December haul. But I also kind of, because I upload it, like recording it, and I'll upload it for the first of the month. But also, the next 2 days are going to be cloudy, rainy, yucky, and Sunday is supposed to be sunny out. I like doing videos when it's like sunny out, when it's actually nice out, rather than when it's cloudy and a bit darker kind of thing. So I maybe go Sunday, but either way, I'll still be uploaded the same day. But I just like doing it ahead of time. But as far as like for filming videos, the Image Comics books that I've read that are in my collection video, That is going to be pushed till next month. I have no way of. I mean, maybe I could. I could like rush to finish the final 2 books I want to read to put in. Actually, it's 3 actually. So I probably should. No, I can't. One's a 12-issue miniseries or maxi series. I don't want to do that. It'll be sometime like in the first few weeks of January. I didn't say I wanted to do it before the end of the year. But it'll be like a kind of like a belated video kind of thing. So I did want to do like a celebration, like end of the year kind of thing. But I can do it at the start of the year. The whole point of me doing that video is I don't have to do it again. I could do like it's a lot of Image comics. So all the ones, regardless if I talked about them before, it'd be all of them that I've read are in my collections. I've read a lot more than did last time. For last time, it'd probably be close to 100. I want to say, but that video will be uploaded sometime in January, and then you'll get the next books I'll be reading for the next few weeks video. That's also in January. That's obviously in January. I haven't even finished the ones I haven't even finished all the library books yet. I could tell. I just could tell. But that, as I say, is that. Oh, and actually, one more thing. The books I get today, I'll just be doing. I'll take a Jesus Christ. I'll take a picture of it, and I'll share it as a community post. I'm not gonna do a dedicated video to it, unless I want to do a video for Saturday and Sunday, because you do have a video for Monday, obviously, the first of the month, and you have one for Friday, tomorrow, and today, Thursday. But that, as I say, is that.